appreciate you again. Super excited about today's guest. We connected on Facebook, and his name is Philip Cohen. Welcome, brother.
Thank you.
Awesome. So tell us a little about you before we dive in. As far as you know what you do for business, your life. You got, or your husband. You have children. The little tidbits.
Well, there's definitely a lot there. So yes, I am. I apologize. Yes,
no worries.
I am. I recently remarried so I got married for the second time. So I am currently a husband. Originally married my high school sweetheart. We had one son whom we lost in a tragic event in July of 2015. So people say yes. It's hard for me to say yes. I am a father, but I have a son that is forever 14 and a half.
Wow.
For work, essentially, I have worked with a lot of early and growth stage startups, helping them to generate revenue really by implementing modern methodologies, technologies, and best practices.
Nice.
So consultant mostly for early stage and growth stage startups. Yep. And that's my profession. That's what I do for a living. But my passion is really, doing things like this and starting to speak on stage about, a little bit about my story and what God has taken me through and, helping other people if I can.
Wow. That's awesome, brother.
Yeah.
We're kind of similar. And, I married my high school sweetheart. We got together when we were like 15 and 17, somewhere right in there. Went to prom. But somewhere, awesome 10 years. And then my father died from an overdose of heroin. And it was a really tough thing. I didn't know how to cope. I didn't have the skills. I decided to do alcohol and just go down that hole. And it took about probably 4 years for that to destroy my marriage. And it taught me a lot. I, like you, starting over. But man, so you lost your son, you said, right?
Correct.
14 and a half years old, about 5 years ago.
July 24th, 2015.
Man, that is some tough stuff. So let's talk about that for a minute, since that's the first thing to get brought up. Like, I couldn't even imagine. So take us back there. What was that like?
Yes, honestly, it's something that you don't want to imagine. Really, it's not someplace you ever want to put yourself there. And but it's really indescribable. So it was you may have even heard about this. This was it was on the news for about a week. So there was two boys that left Jupiter, Florida, on a boat. On a fishing trip, and a couple of days later, their boat was found capsized by Coast Guard. But the short story is they never found either one of the boys. So Perry Cohen was my only son, so I lost my only child that day. And really, my story is not so much about Perry, and I mean definitely Perry and what happened to me is a big part of. I think about some of the things we could talk about today and what's gotten me through that,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But really, to be able to completely really lose my identity, I was, forever changed on that day, obviously. There's
right.
Definitely a different Phil from, pre-July 24th and post-July 24th, July 24th. Yeah, but I could tell you, especially being on a show like this isn't something that I share with a lot of people. But it was my mom was saved like when I was really young, preaching at me forever. Back then, I didn't want to hear about it. I was a kid. I had long hair, like definitely troublemaker. I was into Metallica. Right. I didn't want any of it. Totally got my rebel stage out early.
Yeah.
And then, so, after my divorce, we were still close by. I was still close by to my ex and my son, but, I remember feeling this feeling really from the divorce, like maybe a little bit of depression, but I couldn't really explain it fully. So walked into a local church, and the pastor was speaking, just crazy, right? That actually happened to be this way. The pastor was speaking about divorce, and he was held up a black piece of paper and a white piece of paper, representing man and woman, and glued them together. Glue representing God, and saying that when you become married, you become one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he pulled out, another set from under the pulpit that had been dry already, and then ripped them apart, essentially, the black from the white, and then held it up to the congregation and said, that, you'll never exit a marriage the same way you went in because you made a commitment to God. There's always going to be some black on the white and some white on the black. It's just never going to be a clean break, so
Wow,
like it
that's
really
good.
explained what I was feeling. So, I remember going home and picking up a Bible and starting reading things and then starting to talk to my friends about it. And I remember my friends being like, so that's great, Phil. That's great that that's working for you. So you
Nice.
believe that people live to be 400 years old? You believe that someone lived in the belly of a whale for 3 days? Like, you believe that? And, and I hated that I couldn't talk to that intelligently. Like
Right.
it was just more fairy tale. I couldn't really speak to it. So, there's a lot here, but this led me into like apologetics and trying to understand how one thing led to another. And the Bible, my gosh, when you realize like this is, it's so much more than just a book or 66 books, right? I mean, there's so many things, even just like in Genesis, right from the very beginning. I don't know if you've ever seen like how the genealogy of from Adam to
Yeah.
Noah, could be
Uh-huh.
that. So that whole thing, and just, and there's just so much, that's there, right? So during this, back to this tragic event, I remember, about 4 or 5 days into it, and I realized I was never going to see my son again. And I went in another room, and I remember, this is a really a turning point for me because, you know, it was so easy to be like, you know, there is no God, everything I've
Right.
learned, how could you do this to me? And I remember thinking like, you lost your son too, but you knew you were getting him back in 3 days. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
It's a big difference, huh?
you know this pain, but why would you do this to me? And I remember thinking like, I don't know, I think it's in James, or maybe I don't know exactly where this is, I should know, but I remember getting on my face and saying, okay, God, thank you. Like, I have no idea why I'm saying thank you, but I know that's what I'm supposed to do because your word says to thank you in all things, right? Like, so
Right.
that in some way there's going to be a greater good that's going to come from this. I don't know what it is. I still don't know exactly what it is, 100%. I mean, maybe it's already happened. Maybe it's still to come. I mean, but I couldn't turn my back on the word. It was either going to be like everything I've read and everything I've studied, was either BS or wasn't. So that's kind
Right.
of, really the power.
Yeah. I think, we got two paths that we can travel on those traumatic events. Um, in the long run, they can make us bitter or better. You know what I mean? And we can either sink down into really a pit and never climb out. Because I personally think it's normal to kind of go through the pit. It's part of the grieving process, going through the pain, acknowledging it, and all that stuff. But we a lot of people camp out there, right? And I was one that I camped out there for a couple of years. Like, I'm just going to sit in this pit. Um, what helped you go through the process kind of quicker and just kind of come through it? Maybe not like staying in the pit, but what kind of just brought you through the whole process?